Hey guys, good afternoon. Happy first day of April, April Fool's Day, everybody. We are going to be doing our first Freeview Friday, going over the daily ACT questions from this week. This is the first one for the month of April, so we're going to jump right in, guys. Let me pull up the questions from this week. All of them this time were from science. They were all science questions for this week. So let me just get it pulled up here. 1 second. Like tech difficulties for some reason. Bear with me. Okay, so I believe you can see it now. Let's make it just a tad bit bigger if we can. All right. So like I was saying, guys, the questions from this past week were all from a science practice test. We're going to be looking at questions 8 through 11. And one of the things about the science test is it's really a reading test, most people would say, because you have that little science report blurb, a paragraph or so, and then you also have charts. And the majority of the science test is about analyzing and interpreting data, which you know is a math skill or analytical skill. And so you kind of branching those things together in the science test, reading and math, interpreting data. Okay, so let's look at question 8. And I am doing this like I would do it if I was taking the test. I'm going straight to the questions. I have completely ignored the paragraph and the chart, going to the questions directly, and then seeing where do I need to go to pull the information to answer the question. Okay, so number 8, if another trial had been performed in experiment 2, right? So it's telling me experiment 2 is where I need to go, and 450 milliliters of liquid had been measured in the cylinder, the temperature of the Diet Cola in this trial would most likely have been where, like which answer choice. So it's directing me to experiment 2. So I know I need to look down here. And it's also giving me an amount of the liquid. It says 450 milliliters. So let's look where milliliters are. And it's in this column. And 450 milliliters, well, that's less than this one, and less than this one, and less than this one, and less than this one. So what I realize is this would be decreasing the amount of milliliters, like going down. So all these trials, like if I did a 9th trial and I had 450, right? So I can use everything that's happening before that as a pattern and then make a inference or an educated guess or hypothesis or whatever you want to call it based on the pattern leading up to that or leading down to that, if you want to think of it that way. And we're comparing it to temperature. So we're looking at the milliliters and temperatures, what we want to pay attention to. So as the milliliters decreased, right? What happened to the temperature? The temperature is increasing. Once again, as the milliliters or the volume decreased, the temperature increased. So if I go down to 450, I would expect to go above 60. So that's going to be J, greater than 60 degrees Celsius. And notice that I did not pay attention to anything in chart 1 or the paragraph at all. I just read the question, and the question directed me to where I needed to go. Number 9, it says, suppose trial 6 had been repeated. So it's directing you to trial 6, which would be table 2. But the bottle of Diet Cola had been opened and left undisturbed at 25 degrees Celsius for 12 hours. So kind of like right here, trial 6, 12 hours, 25 degrees before it was attached to the apparatus. So now I can show you that the apparatus is, oh wait, it got smaller. Hold on. Okay, so this is what the apparatus looks like. Okay. And I have to make it bigger so I can read. So before it was attached to the apparatus, would the mass of CO2 produced in this trial likely be greater than 0.969 grams or less than 0.969 grams? Okay, so we're saying if we repeated this one, this row at 25 degrees, but we left it undisturbed for 12 hours before we attached it to the apparatus. So it's kind of like you had, this is a Coca-Cola bottle, right? So you have Coke and you know, as soon as you open the bottle, what happens? But what happens if you left it, it's opened and sits for 12 hours and then you attach it to the apparatus? So that's the scenario, okay? You've opened it and you let the Coke sit there for 12 hours, okay? What do you think would happen to the CO2? Would it be 9.69? Would it be greater or less than? So for this one, the answer choices are greater because over the 12 hours, the concentration of CO2 in the Diet Cola would have decreased. Greater because over the 12 hours, the concentration of CO2 in the Diet Cola would have increased. Less because over the 12 hours, the concentration, less because the concentration of CO2 would have decreased, or less because the CO2 would have increased. So think about this. It's a science question, but really it's real life. You open the Coca-Cola bottle. As soon as you open it is when you get the most fizz and everything from the bottle, right? If you let it sit 12 hours, all of the fizz and the CO2, that's gone. So it's going to be less, right? So greater doesn't make sense. You can eliminate A and B. It has to be less, right? This is a typical question we see in science where you have, is it greater or less? Like, is it this or that? This is a this or that question. And then out of the this or that, is your reasoning for the this right? And then you have the reasoning for the that. I hope that makes sense. So like it has greater, and then it has a right reason for why it would be greater and a wrong reason for why it would be greater. And then it has less, two lesses, and then it has a right reason for less and a wrong reason for less. Okay, so we know it's going to be less because greater doesn't make sense, right? It's been 12 hours, but then you have to pick the right less, right? So where's the correct reason? It's because the CO2 has decreased, not because the CO2 has increased after 12 hours. The CO2 has decreased. So the correct answer is C. Okay, let's take a look at number 10. So number 10 says 1 millimole of CO2 has a mass of 0.044 grams. How many trials resulted in the production of at least 1 millimole of CO2? Okay, how many trials resulted in at least 1 millimole, which is 0.044 grams? In other words, how many trials resulted in 0.044 grams? Okay, guys, if you haven't noticed yet, I have not once read that paragraph. I've started with the questions and then from there gone to the information that I needed. And so far, I haven't needed to go to the paragraph. Just pointing that out. So save yourself some time. And now they're asking me about trials, and I know the trials are in the charts. And there were a total of 8 trials. So I'm going to go quickly skim through and see which trials are greater than 0.044 grams and count them. Trial 1, 1.36, that's greater, that counts. Trial 2, 1.11, that's greater, that counts. Trial 3, 1.02, that's greater, that counts. Trial 4, 1.24, that's greater, that counts. Trial 5, greater, counts. 6, greater, counts. 7, greater, counts. 8, greater, counts. Like all 8 trials were greater than 0.044. So all 8 trials had at least 1 millimole of CO2. So the answer is J. Okay, so don't overcomplicate these science questions, guys. They are kind of straightforward if you can pick out exactly what they're asking you. Okay, don't give them more than what it says. Read and go exactly to where it points you to. Go exactly as directed. Only look for that thing, that one thing, and you'll get these answers correct. All right, number 11. Number 11 says, according to figure 1, so there's your map. It's directing you to figure 1. Which of tube A and tube B, if either, had at least one end submerged in a liquid before the clamp was removed? So let me go over here to figure 1, like it says. Okay, and it says which of the tubes, if either A or B, was submerged in liquid before the clamp was removed. Now, when you say before the clamp was removed, you might be thinking, what are they talking about? If you have not read the paragraph, you won't know what they mean by if the clamp, before the clamp was removed. And so at this point, if it's like removed, I don't know anything about a removed clamp, so you might want to skim the paragraph now because you're getting a clue about something that you can't visually, you wouldn't know just from looking. So you could skim the paragraph, like, what are they talking about removing the clamp? Skim, 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 skim. Okay, so you know at some point from reading the paragraph that the clamp gets removed in order for this solid to be pushed by the gases released from the Coke, and it'll go into this jar. So once you read it, you'll know that. But either way, that's really not all that important. What's important is from the figure 1, right here, from the figure 1, which one of the tubes, if any, is submerged in liquid from the beginning? And this is what the picture looks like at the beginning. Which tube is in liquid, if any? And that's tube B. Like we can clearly see tube B is going all the way down into this jar, into this liquid, which is H2O from reading the paragraph. That's there. This tube is empty in the graduated cylinder at the beginning. And tube A is not in any liquid at the beginning, right? Because it's not in the water right there. If you can see my arrow moving, it's not in the water right here, and it's definitely not in the Coke. So the answer for this question, 11, is B. Tube B is the only one that is submerged in liquid at the beginning before the clamp was removed. All right, guys, so that is our Friday Freeview for today, April 1st, April Fool's Day. I hope to see you guys in the comments all week long next week answering these questions. These are real official ACT questions. And then I'll see you guys on Friday when we review the answers. Have a wonderful weekend.